Hello, Americans, and hello, species, especially and especially differentially, especially those without computers. This, as Americans, now I'm not. In other words, we have to keep in mind. We have to have realized that which is actually capable of our, and that which is actually in conjunction to our syntax nature, our fact-sheet nature, if you will. Nature being identity in its simultaneous relationship, positive and negative, in a semi-ancient trap. So syntactically, the world is like a computer with a virus, with viruses that are bonded. And so this is how you have to understand how computers work. And you have to understand how the people that teach about computers have to have only so much time. So they have it all broken up into parts. So they have real truths. Why you explain reality. And apart from, as if it's, truth, why to speak for positive and truth, positive and negative, other people's identity. Investigations into what is heard and said between people, realized and not. A lot of time people make complaints. People don't realize. This is where hundreds of modern nations at once are in. How that we have to get to that, but we have to have qualified a number of all the subjects that how they are simultaneously connected. How simultaneously an identity that is the identity the sciences share, existent or non-existent. They can make their sciences abridged, make it work out. But the entire time, nature's going to demonstrate negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, and only allowed victims to sustain, as they did with that breaching method. That I'm not a lawyer, but it was a predicate acts delivery system method against every single individual, and it's sustained. Because in this, what was sustained was what was/is propagated by a breaching method that no one saw, no one discerned, because of the breaching method employed, tactically, everyone's sickly victim to it. Everyone's sickly needing, naturally needing to counter that as fact-keeping nature. Needed to care for people that got hurt by such. And simultaneously need to blame on other things, others themselves, the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, and uses of them. This is not positive or negative people's relations. This is where and how each identity of the ground location of every modern nation is only capable of being lipogressions to what is actually capable of each age of correlation nature. But that can't be defended. And all that is locked to collusion. Where and how we have a pathology of homes, metaphorically speaking, and more finite than that. And YouTuber Anthony Wall, I did a video, I'll do a better one, on the 3 identities of zero, which I didn't read anywhere. but I'm using correlation nature. I'm using the identity that is greater than and that is more finite than A through Z, while being their complete identity of volume. While it's complete and how its complete identity of volume is making more of itself by making more temporary / lasting identities. Identity / S of as forever nature, as volume as its identity. The identity of value progression, not per faith, that we know generated matter, physics, metaphysics, and identities, complete course, completely self-valued, having been and being worse than just obfuscated, offensively, since semi-ancient times, since before modern religions multi-front counters to semi-ancient, tactical, through all kinds of different victim reactions, things, juxtaposed with its own motivation, which is counter theory, but it is also necessary to address recorded offensive uses of everything manifest with where and how. All identity ground locations were forced to blame other things other than selves and ourselves for the real cause of negative value nature progressions against Native Americans A through Z. Since before our founding parents were born in America, already they had entrenched that breaching method, predicate act delivery system method, if you will, that word, as an archetypal criminal enterprise, if you will. And so to use predicate act as a science, so to use predicate as a science of English where they share an identity, for example, pseudo-ratiocination and ratiocination, they share an identity. I'm not a doctor, but there are various ways they are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. One's from my town, intercities, with various nature's courts and police forms. Former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, his lawyer, Robert Chevrolet. A bunch of different natures of federal criminals and different natures of cases, and ones that were his co-defendants in a 2006 case. For example, as evidence, offensively, people won't let things reported over the phone because the people who vet information in the names and the integrity of the identities of other are needing to hide live aggressions. And that was is used remotely per what was is way worse with all locations. Per one method, one order of worse than but simple predicate act delivery system method. A simple criminal enterprise method, but an archetypal one. That came from semi-ancient times. And it's fact treatment nature oriented, because it's the identity oriented. It's tactically ulterior from that syntactical conjunction we are as individual grouping together. This is where invisible but discernible is in demonstration to us. Everything is in all exceptions and exception nature in demonstration of the same thing. Even when if appearing other. So we have identity ground locations in relationship to where we are and were forced. Our founding parents couldn't say, oh, look, there's a Constitution now. We don't have to pretend it's theater anymore. You know? Because of the method of it. And here and there, since before their founding parents, their founding groups, their founding national identities, country identities, group, individual, all tactical ulterior from the native system. When the ancients, before the sciences became tactically criminally foreign influenced, they understood criminal foreign influences. They understood predicate acts. They understood how to cause evolution's fruits and gifts. They couldn't fathom how an archetypal criminal enterprise or anyone could or would forget how to cause evolution's fruits and gifts by the identity of the grounds, identity of relationship to itself. Through, distinctly, but while as us, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, as one identity of volume. That is a demonstration of how it is inseparable from all others. It is the only singular identity of value/value progression that is all others, even though while it is simultaneously not. It is distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously itself. Its identity of relationship to itself. And the value of that, which is invisible, but it's only increasing. In these ways, it is still discernible. Because when those three are positive, also positive onto itself, no matter where it is or who it is. This is the difference actually, which is a native course. It is a native conjunction to our syntax nature as identity nature, and nature as identity, that which is simultaneously onto positive and negative, because nothing can help but being its simultaneous relationship to itself, as itself. It is coming to, from, as, with, and for each thing, while as it, positive or negative to itself. And this comes to Earth's distinct, non-distinct relationship to the rest of space nature. It being its identity of relationship to itself. Again, the increasing value of its subject. So space and existence, to teach this, the ancients would most probably have said all the time they would use the slash. Space/existence. Both space and existence are increasing identities of volume. So it is to the lost order of, as the lost order of itself, as the sciences, our needs to examine this identity of volume that is more finite than the order of the finite, but while as the order of the finite. Value/value progression. Distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, so it's invisible but still discernible. Because it is also the same one that is active. We are active fact-tripping nature. We are active quality of diffusion. As its identity of relationship to itself, that which is self-generating. Genesis is an identity of self-generation. See, the sciences were supposed to come together grouped, where all of a sudden it's admitted what is actually recorded to correlation nature. They are abridged. The religions, all identity of the ground locations, They have a conjunction to our fact-keeping nature that was to sustain victims, specifically to exploit fact-keeping nature phenomena, manifest and having been manifest, and having been manifest where and how. It made everyone need as fact-keeping nature to entertain more and more the short words of logic and of integrity actual, of the appearance of justice actually, always. Therefore, correlation nature. See, correlation identity is one where the perfect world is a narrative, where and how were the identities of the law of each hundreds of modern nations at once, so when they're shared, so where their extents of being able to deal with positive and negative of identity, of names, identity, ground, locations, industries, values, value progression. So the laws, they tell them, oh, that's law. We speak for it's Marx positions and stuff like that. Each nation was taking hundreds of nations at once, pushed into an identity that is real. It's the only one that represents them. But uses of it more and more. And uses of positive and negative, treatments of integrity. They have to hide life progressions, hide proofs of it, hurt correlation nature offensively more and more. Right back to all identity ground locations. That is a used remote method associated with wars and everything. World Trade Center attack. For example, the World Trade Center is involved with agreements with legislation, where and how statutes and precedents we know were criminally foreign influenced, tactically criminally foreign influenced as American history. Now there are needs to have a nationalized order to how you defend, memory and reality regarding American history, regarding other nations, regarding their history. The whole time, all database relationships are victims, distinctly, just like people. To keep people, for example, that simultaneously, there are exceptions and exception nature maintained simultaneously. Where how there are overt criminal enterprises that are totally different. There are private ones that are totally different, kept needing to hide and to self-value, rolls with the illusions. Where and how there is mass identity theft / fraud against everyone. Against every identity, the ground location, let alone. Where and how we are sick tax nature. Where and how computers work is where and how we work, humanity. So all the locations of humanity, this is what computers do, they work with locations. And there are temporary / lasting locations. For example, in physics, this is not what lasting is for every nature, but everything is for lasting is for every nature. What I'm saying in physics, and with metaphysics, and the identities, all the programming languages, different syntax. That works with the way the computers work, they work with identities. Everything works with identity. Everything is just one identity of value / value progression. It's a demonstration of its self-generation. Allah's name is also revealed by the ancients, most probably teach this. demonstrable that modern religions were left in hands that had below them and over them, so as their value. No difference from the criminally foreign influence sciences and defenses of them. And more they had to pretend other by self-valuing, fake differences, wearing how names, because identities of hundreds of countries at once, how they were individually grouped in together, agreements and the natures of processes that defended, that alone causes nature to demonstrate negative value, nature progressions, acts and natures, and demonstration of the loss of the value of that republic for which we stand, when it was, and where it was, and how it was revealed when the entire species identity of volume before criminal foreign influences. It was acutely aware of the method of causing positive value, nature progressions, acts, and natures. Infrastructural development more advanced than today. There are proofs. Because of the fact human nature relationship to this. So as hundreds of nations at once just agreeing, say, well, what if you're wrong? Just agreeing to put the syntax counters in relationship to that, in relationship to the predicate act delivery system method, in relationship to what? That's what to go war against. That which is in the way of undoing every identity of the ground location, let alone, not forgetting for a second, the increasingly unacceptable, you can't defend that and pretend freedom at the same time, but people are doing it. Then they're pretending people have opinions and convictions other. That's associated with wire crime methods that are manifest interstate, for example, wherein how the interbranch are in the overt criminal enterprises, in the private ones, and it's just all people, killers, body dumping spot, people associated around it. These things, wars. So this method made people do things against each other. Everyone against everyone. Color against color. They put that color game in there. So our syntax would be self-value, tactically ulterior from this invisible but still discernible. It is my theory that the first identity of volume in everything was not white or black, or light or darkness, but clear, one clear identity of volume. And then the ancients would probably taught that there was the heartbeat of Allah, and the one identity of complete possession of everything at once, made it so distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, by pushing part of the identity of space into the identity of existence, and by pulling part of the identity of existence into and as a third bonded semi-nature inside its complete nature, where it is 1/3/5 identities of sequence/simultaneous nature, as an only increasing identity of volume. That is, anywhere anything can be discerned or made up. an identity of relationship to itself, to its value/value progression. And this is the only thing that surges through all things. Boxings, not force. I speak of source alone. It's true. Because I'm the only one speaking about the identity of the ground locations, the trap we're in. Now this juxtaposed other and maintains other through a method where and how the identity of violence is being exploited. Again, through tactically manifest other motivations, natures, needs, interests, and where and how those naive reactions, naive, fact-cheating nature relationships. Everyone's identity was stolen. Everyone's. That's important to understand, because then we're addressing what's happening now. Why people are so mad with the things, boxings, how this keeps invested, our own self-value, breaching tools, weapons, and the people countering the people who are the tools and weapons of and breaching screens. These are systems that not just for those juxtaposed apparent motivations for evil and for fake care like money, job, the perfect world forsaken. That's what the supervisors value too. It's what the overt criminal enterprises and the private ones value simultaneously, not by accident. Not by accident, this uses how we are our value/value progression in relationship to the phenomenon of the streets. It's a phenomenon where we're going to walk, be seen, therefore our name's used, therefore sequence relationships used. Simultaneously, nature is being used, where name is being used, where sequence is being used, where it's discernible. Anything discernible, even invisible, it is a demonstration of that which is in conjunction to and while as all things. It is coming to, from, while as each thing. It is. And for and with itself, further, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, as 1/3/5 identities of volume, per science. See, but we have other maintained, needed by, we are supposed to have freedom of religion, but they have that in relationship to syntax. Like, for example, where we have doctors of mental health, and where we have courts associated with them, and we have police forms associated with them, ones with badges, interbranch, fabricating audio and video, roles with identity thefts and frauds, and with a whole bunch of other nations. Now that they had to originally instill, they had the high life progressions, offensively too, for them is maintaining them needing this. Since everyone was kids, our leaders, our other victim predators, our other neutralities, exploited. Opinions and convictions are offensively in the way of science's free speech and means with mandated law, by mandated law actually properly followed. So you have to understand what is actually having been forced, sustained, and how they have types of, like through time, even if they made it up, about the child abuses through churches and through other religious things. It is really where and how all identity of the ground locations are being used by a breaching method that maintains self-value, victims, as fact treatment nature, criminally foreign influence, premises treatments, positive treatments, identity treatments, to exploit that. That's including the identity ground locations all. So what's that mean? The defenses, that's why the people have no computers. That's why all exceptions in exception nature are in demonstration of the same thing. And where there are people stacking in America, simultaneously where and how that is a phenomenon of other nations to keep their identities of locations, areas, states, sciences, private database relationships, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, killers, body dump spot peoples, tied to everyone a syntax nature that is seeking positive anyway and just trying to be good. But just trying to be good and speaking for the public in the intercampus system in nature, which is greater than more finite than and while as the value of the environment, just as its identity of relationship to it itself is even more valuable, which is all parts of itself are simultaneously, distinctly, not distinctly and simultaneously related, be positive or negative. When they are positive together, the 1/3/5 identities of volume, that reveals evolution's fruits and gifts. It means through where and how we are fact treatment nature, while simultaneously as identity of the ground, locations, areas, and states nature, as identity as nature. So, thank God. So, when we use the word God, we're going to call this algebraic consciousness algebraic. And where those are three identities of volume that are bonded. And that we are the perfect memory of the identity of forever, of what is at least the identity of at least equivalent to the identity of forever, while being an identity that is more finite than three identities of zero, while increasing their value, while increasing in, while being greater than the identity of forever, of infinity already, and increasingly too already, while being it. No, in other words, more and more infinity nature is being made from inside forever nature's complete identity of volume. And there are proofs that the ancients had revealed instruments and how and why the seven notes of our modern systems of our modern system of music in America, how they are individually grouped and together bound, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, in relationship to this volume science and to this volume theory and to this volume counter theory, because this is also using evidence where and how volume theory associated with the Big Bang theory, where and how that was offensively being used to obfuscate, not consciously this, but correlation nature, relative to it, just as the theory of relativity is demonstrably being and having been orchestrated to obfuscate the actual existence of the actually discernible, invisible but still discernible identity of relativity. That again, which is distinctly, non-distinctly 1/3/5 identities of volume, as it is that which is the value of sequence truth that came before the order of the finite of each modern nation, for example, while it has that value distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, etc. So what we could do is to admit and to realize how we are in value nature systems that are breaching method, and that are and have been tactically criminally foreign influence, enforced self-value, tricked self-value, hurt self-value. The branches of government themselves, every modern nation, they are recorded child abused, delusions wrought. These are not human beings. One way redeems. All through your teams, boxings, all trade. So evolution science feels like game. /S. I tell it best. Boxings. I tell you things. Behold. Begin to be told. So what we do is who wants to back the idea of we represent these locations for them in a cartoon method. What programming language are you going to use? And we're going to make it like, I can't agree to work. I don't know what the legality is, but in the comment section, who would just to be a good person, tell me what programming language to use if I want to make the database, like an online where people can get behind the same initiative /S. I want to give away all the secrets. That's why Little Rap Guy and Friends are counter-obfuscated. You're going to see the identity of the Native American chief of a cartoon value nature system, Native Americans, in a cartoon before, and then as a cartoon America. But you're going to see that predicate acts delivery system method. You're going to discern what it was doing by preventing the short words of everybody, and how more and more that was his complete possession of the active and progressive words in relationship to answer /S. So we are not just a data stream. This is where and how the computers work. But also simultaneously, it's about that which none of the classes on that have time to get into. They'll call it theoretical or philosophical. Because everyone, each age of fact-achieving nature, each age of correlation nature, each identity of its sophistication enables perception to other identities of sophistication. In other words, if you know how to do one thing good, you can do other things good. Because you learn how to use correlation. But correlation itself is, and being and having been employed to a method /S that is sustained through our own. And where and how we have to respond to that as fact-achieving nature. They are not alone with that. That's where and how it is relevant when I say private, overt criminal enterprises, killers, people opinions and conviction, locations of body dumping spots. All those things have ties, where those illusions had applications. And see, so now people have already self-valued those applications. And that's what happened in other countries at the same time. I just remind, we're in a semi-ancient trap. Therefore I rap. But forced to pause. So they have individual voices prevented, because with locations, areas, and states, some of the crime methods recorded as evidence, the crime methods of the branches of government individually grouped in together. For example, manifest when they make opinions about what Jim Crow laws were as victims, but as victim predators. When they make opinions about James Madison. We have to understand James Madison and the value of Native Americans before they were divided. As our human identity of volume that was in possession of human education, of memory of how to cause evolution's fruits and gifts, before the land was tactically denatured, and before that was tactically made self-valued through whole motivations, nature's needs, interests, on paper only other than its own, off paper. And where that was on paper, that has all bunch of things off paper. So now there are syntax phenomena that were maintained to be perpetually exploited. Our founding parents, James Madison, they had to sneak in a countermeasure, put in the surface values of the Constitution that are recorded that were preventing them from being simultaneously defended, because they were little trick syntax natures, positive and negative treatment natures, identity treatment natures, identity ground locations treatment natures, victim predators, even if they made up witch trials from such positions. So then they had to hide from and hurt and value hurt more and more by the breaching method, the predicate acts delivery system method, correlation nature. Each age in nature or each position of it, sickly itself, each location sickly distinctly, a victim. And so never having had what its syntax nature afford would is simultaneously already in conjunction to them. To have voice, even though that reveals evolution's fruits and gifts and means from nowhere for everyone, as everyone. Especially as anyone who wants to speak for positive or negative, or identity, or charges, or identity, especially because this is what the value/value progression is. So when you shut off a computer, the CPU has space locations that stay in the memory. When the computer's on, there are a whole bunch of other locations printed onto microchips, etc., that have a relationship to the circuit. Which loops emulate, for example. I'm not a computer expert, but so if anyone wanted to correct me, in other words, I'm saying they have to do. In other words, there are the variables in relationship to the loops and stuff like that, but the circuit is touched upon, for example, when you hit the keys on a computer keyboard. And then that makes the positive or negative. That translates into to the binary, which represents numbers and letters, and our colors and things like that. But that's not what I'm talking about. Where I'm speaking about how the numbers and letters are juxtaposed. For example, B is the second letter, and coming right to left is the third number. So you see how like a 3, you could draw B by just connecting it, the open parts of it, and know how the open parts are open left to right, where they are closed at right, and open left. And so that is for and the height of it. See, they even put things like drugs, more than money and things like that, fuel drugs, are the uses for the syntax. Breaching method collusion through other motivations, natures, needs, interests. Self-valued uses of all identity of the ground, locations, areas, and states. So this is not complicated. But we have people offensively pretending people have opinions and convictions, while increasingly they are preventing us from using short words, and while stacking names of experts, quote, things like that, of people associated with the directors of agencies, foreign and domestic, incapable of defending themselves or anything, of us at the same time, not by accident. So that's the same thing here and there. So they agree to stay, but no one realized, but it can't defend itself and afford what is actually the answer /S, capable of being understood by each age of fact, treatment, nature simultaneously and now. And nature will demonstrate negative value, nature progressions, action, nature, until we put the human science back to its system, the republic and the campus system back to its manifest value nature system. This is the only way, is to admit all identity of the ground, locations, areas, states, even industries, victims. Seabrook can't do it. Some of them won't be able to take it, like psychology. They got to steal what I've been saying, teaching. They steal people's identities. They have people attaching me since I was a little kid to fake communications my parents are with themselves, attaching little kids to fake locations. Then they use the police forms associated with the media locations. They have police forms of agencies associated with them. And they just have them brazenly / insidiously rolls with methods also with the locations next to them. And then they pretend it's personal. So they have the sense and sensibilities recorded where they're pretending other than is real by a breaching method, as a breaching screen. That being and having been used already as their roles with all kinds of cases originally and still. Where and how all locations, areas, and states, way worse than witch trials. Which is, you can't get worse. But just to get everyone. Breaching method, breaching tools, weapons, screens, roles, self-value. That and defenses of that engineered with no one realizing, even kings, even pharaohs, syntax nature awe from a semi-ancient trap that no one saw coming. No one could fathom that humanity wouldn't realize how to cause evolution into fruits and gifts by that identity of value, progression, and inventions work or not, relationship to it. They are further positive or negative in relationship to it. Our founding parents wanted us by now to explain and to understand how all identity of the ground locations were criminal insidiousness natures, and how they were forced to self-value that syntactically, where we are syntax treatment nature. See, but other was is offensively told, and so other was is offensively defended. No, as sensibilities formally, informally. For example, self-valuing, where and how they have conjunctions to each age of fact treatment nature. That is simultaneously as each age of correlation nature. And that is each age of identity's simultaneous relationship to positive or negative, where they have self-valued roles with the collusion of criminal insidiousness natures of positive, overt and insidious / insidious, and criminal insidiousness natures of negative, overt / insidious, that are simultaneously bonded even further worse by the predicate acts delivery system method that has everyone as itself, but as like a cell, as like a semi-nature relationship to your complete nature. So I'm not a doctor, and the reason we need doctors, the reason we need experts, is so we can get to the answers where and how locations, areas, and states we are criminally foreign influenced. You have to be able to charge a group for this. So we have to charge an archetypal criminal enterprise to start where every identity of the ground location, including countries, nations, territories, they all have means, fact, treatment nature, practical, more than practical right now. So the syntax oriented to blame a predicate acts delivery system method and to claim identity of the ground locations tactically denatured and breaching method employed to cause negative value nature progressions, action natures. And so we have to assume each identity of the ground location as a war zone, as a hyper war zone. But if we agree this as simultaneously, it's at the end of the war, and we're going to have better than what they call development. You know, we're going to have means to even at a base to identity of the ground, timeless. What could be afforded. And we're going to use space. So all those temporary locations in the computer, they are used where and how the data stream coming in has to make a whole bunch of peripheral data with each piece of data. And with its increasing identity of volume, in relationship to all the identity /s that are the value /value progression of that circuit, of that identity of value /value progression as identity, nature itself, that which is positive or negative from the wall the computer is plugged into, from the battery it is operating with. Vaccines. So the circuits and data variables and stuff like that, how we think, how the computers work, is mimicking how the space we have juxtaposed with experience, memory of the past. knowledge of how to do something, how not, what correlation natures means. So I forget, this is a long enough video. The point is, all we have to do is admit, and someone help, someone respond, because because of the methods, the branch of the government, with the other nations. That's why they say they're hiding behind where and how there are economic penalties if they get caught alone. So they can keep leaders in collusion with all locations, areas in the states and sciences, identity ground locations in collusion against everyone. And that's self-value. It's per method. It's not complicated. So you have to get where and how they're fabricating audio and video into databases, and switching and forging names, and sequence shifting. Realized in conjunction to where and how that was his roles, with all the bad things happening with locations. Where and how that was his roles, with what was his on-off campuses. Collusion with other juxtaposed with it. Where and how that was his roles. With the locations in the first place, waiting for that. Already having been kept and only capable of being right back to its all locations. And where and how we are fact cheap in nature. And where and how this is subtle, this is simultaneously insidious / overt. So where and how the overt is prevented brings up where and how individuals, groups, and together are fighting for civil rights as breaching screens, tools, weapons, and fake sides, as victims, blaming other things, others, and selves wrongly for what the predicate acts delivery system method was and is, where and how it was / is attached to all questions regarding America, in a way mimicking that identity of valuable valuable aggression that is attached to all things, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, and increasingly so invisibly but still discernibly. So this method has had parents being lied to, and in sick and insidious ways, through the communications of their own kids and other people's kids, everyone speaking through others. Everyone putting their business in where they can't afford to have their own roles with people. Originally, still, all kinds of ways. Criminally foreign influence. They don't have to be with the groups that they have claimed as criminal enterprises were like that. They have them kept needing to hide the same sequence shift styles of it. Finite, active, progressive lies, identity thefts, frauds, roles. See, with simple, short words, what slavery was about, what divided Native Americans is an identity theft, fraud method. See, the syntax nature that people found themselves with, the experts and types of things and stuff like that, as victims. They can't defend that and afford to have short words allowed to extend. So they can't have short words. They can't have identities of correlation nature without their identities self-valued stolen, self-valued worse. See, now if we counter the identity thefts and frauds against black people, for example, which is so easy to do. The only things making it hard and complicated are people forcing other to be the forced only way thing that can be countered. Racism. Never allowing the predicate act, the breaching method allowed to be addressed. Everyone, fake sides, of correlation nature. Roles to that which is off campuses made